Okay, here we go. Quad factoring. I think there are like kind of three separate videos in one, and we're going to be okay. Here we go. All right, factoring. All right, we already did this, right? We factored out the GCF. We said, okay, what's the biggest number that goes into 12 and 18? We said what? 6 is the biggest number, right? And then we said, what's the biggest that goes into x squared x? Well, x is the only one that goes into both of them, right? X squared doesn't go into x. And so we already did this part, so we're not going to practice this again. And we said 12x squared divided by 6x, that's 2x. And 18x, negative 18x divided by 6x is 3. And if we want to check our work, right, we could do we could do distributive property and get right back there. We are not doing that. Oh, by the way, our answer would be this right here, right, if it said to factor this. But we are doing something different. We are factoring where we can't pull out a GCF. I mean, we could try, right? Does something go into x squared, 9x, and 20? Nope, there's nothing. I mean, 1, but if we're going to factor out a 1, that's really not going to help us. So when we have a quadratic, and so that means that our highest power is a 2, that means we have a quadratic. If we have a quadratic and we have 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, we can do a new way of factoring, which sets up 2 parentheses. All right, this is going to be like kind of undistributing. And so what we're going to do is this. We're going to say, what times what gives me x squared? Or rather, what times itself gives me x squared? We would have an x, and we would have an x. Because x times x equals x squared. True? True. All right, let's go ahead and pick a different color, and let's talk about the other 2 terms. We've got a 20 here, and we've got a 9 here. All right, this is where it gets a little fun and tricky at the same time. So we say to ourselves, what times what equals 20? Let's go over here and write some numbers. Let's see. 1 times 20, right? Yep. 2 times 10. 4 times 5. Anything else? Nope, that's pretty much it. All right. We're going to put one of these pairs in our parentheses. Which one? We're going to pick the ones that also add to equal 9. So let's see. 1 plus 20, is that equal 9? No. 2 plus 10? Nope, that's 12. 4 plus 5, this is our winner. Ding, 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 ding. We're going to put a 4 here. We're going to put a 5 there. All right, now we need something in between. we needed either some pluses or some minuses, and so we noticed that all of our signs are positive, but the most important part is what times what equals 20? Well, a positive 5 and a positive 4 multiply to equal 20, but you know what? A negative 5 times a negative 4 would also multiply to equal 20. So we have to double check and see, wait a minute, we need a positive 9. All right, so that's why we know they're both plus. Boy, that was a lot of words, wasn't it? All right, now I want to show you something. This is your answer, right? But we learned with polynomials how to distribute, right? So if we wanted to check, so let's just say we already know that's our answer, but let's say we're like, oh, I'm not really sure. Is that really our answer? We could check it by using the distributive property, right? We could say x times x is x squared, x times 5 is 5x, 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times 5 is 20. And so look, we've got our like terms we can combine, and look what happens. We just went back to what we started with. So that's the really cool thing. When we are factoring out, when we're factoring a quadratic, we're really undistributing and cool. All right, but once again, this is your answer. So I'm not going to keep showing you this part because I think you get it. You don't have to see it over and over again. So let's look at this. Once again, we have a quadratic, we have 3 terms. So those are the conditions that we need to go ahead and set up our 2 parentheses. And so we say, all right, we got to put something here and something here. What times itself equals x squared? It's just x, right? So we put an x and x. We got to put something here and here that multiply to equal 10 and add to equal 7. There's only 2 choices for 10, right? 1 times 10 is 10. 2 times 5 is 10. Which one of these choices, this one or this one, add to 7? This one. So it's a 2 and a 5. Once again, if we see that our original quadratic has all pluses, we don't even have to think about what to put in there. We just put pluses. Now, do I need these underlined parts underneath? No, that's not really part of my answer, but that's okay. We understand that. So this on the test and in your practice, we're done. That's all we have to do. All right, they'll get a little more complicated. It says marker board pause. Okay, go ahead and pause this and then unpause and see what I do. All right, so woo, I'm writing in yellow. So this should be what, +3 +4? All right, awesome. Let's see what I'm going to say to do next. Okay, so you're going to stop and you're going to do practice number 1 and you're going to check your answers on the blog and then come back to this video. All right, so the second part is coming up. Pause it and then come on back. All right, welcome back. We're going to keep factoring, but we noticed something different, right? We've got a minus sign there. So we got to be really careful with that minus sign. So here we go. Let's go ahead. Once again, we have a quadratic. We have 3 terms. So we're allowed to do this kind of factoring where we set up 2 parentheses. What times itself gives me x squared, an x and an x. All right. Now we have to get a little tricky here. We have to have 2 numbers that multiply to equal -18 and add to equal 7. So let's just go ahead and write down all our stuff, even if it doesn't seem very, believable. But 1 and 18, right? Yeah. No, I'm not putting any signs. I'm not putting pluses or minuses at all. 2 and 9, 3 and 6. That's it. All right, now we're going to mess around. We know that to get a negative number when multiplying 2 numbers to get a negative answer, one of our answers is going to be positive and one of our answers has to be negative, right? One of our numbers has to be positive, one of our numbers has to be negative. So I'm not going to do the plus and minus to our numbers yet until we talk about it. See 1 and 18, I don't care who's positive or who's negative. Could we ever combine 1 and 18 and get 7? Of course not. Now 2 and 9, that's looking really good, right? Because what? 9 minus 2 is 7, right? If I put my 9 here and my minus 2 here, so my -2 and my +9, right? That still multiplies to equal -18. And when you add it, it equals 7, a +7. And so we don't even have to look at 3 and 6 because 3 and 6 were never going to equal 7 anyways. We're done. So we have to think a little bit more when we don't see both signs being positive. Let's try another one of these. All right, once again, we have a quadratic. There are 3 terms, so we can go ahead and use our parenthesis thing. We always know since we have an x squared, we're going to do an x and an x. All right, 10 and 3. We only have 2 things, 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Is 1 and 10 ever going to give me a 3? No, never, never, never. Now, let's look at 2 and 5, all right? I either could have a +2 and a -5, or a -2 and a +5. Which one's going to give me a +3? You're right, this one, right? Because this one's going to give me a -3. So we'll put, and it doesn't matter. You could put the +5 here or the -2. It doesn't matter which order you put it in, all right? All right. So we can handle these. If you need your calculator to help you with them, pick up that calculator. All right. Oh, look, this is kind of fun. It's the same problem, but now instead of that plus in front of the 3x, I've got a minus there. All right. So I have 2 minuses, and that's okay. Once again, we have a quadratic with 3 terms, so we are allowed to set up a parentheses. All right. 2 numbers. Now, we already did this, right? You can look at your paper. We know 1 and 10 is not going to work. We know 2 and 5 is either going to work, right? It's going to work either as +2 minus 5 or -2 plus 5. Now, the -2 plus 5, that already gave us our +3, so we don't want to use that again. The +2 minus 5, that's going to give us our -3. Oh, I forgot to put the x's here. So x and x, we're going to use a +2, or you can put the -5 first. It doesn't matter. All right. So once again, I kind of think of factoring as just a fun game. All right, let's see what I have planned. Oh, we're going to keep going. Let's keep going. All right. We know we put our x and x here. All right, 20. We need two numbers. Let's see. We got 1 and 20. We have 2 and 10. We have 4 and 5. And that's pretty much it. Who's going to give me that -8? Well, 1 and 20 are never going to be giving me a -8. 4 and 5, never. But 2 and 10, absolutely. All right, which one is it? Is it a +2 - 10 or a -2 + 10? Because they both work to give us this -20, right? 2 times -10 gives me the -20. A -2 times 10 also gives me the -20. But which one gives us the -8? Not this one that gives us a +8. So here's our answer. We do a +2 and a -10, and we are done. All right. I think I'm doing too much talking because honestly, when you start doing these on your own, that's when the real learning begins. And just in time, stop. All right. So now you're going to pause this video and you're going to do practice number 2, and then you are going to come back. And I think we have one more to do. All right, I'll see you after you are done. I'm seeing what time we have. All right, not too bad. Come on back when you're done with practice number 2 and do practice 3 with me. All right, welcome back. All right, now we see that we've got something a little different. We've got a plus here, but a minus here. So we're going to have to really think about what that means. All right, we have a quadratic with 3 terms. We're allowed to do this. We put our x and x. All right, let's just write down our numbers for 12. Let's see, we've got 1 and 12. We have 2 and 6. We have 3 and 4. All right, we can tell right away that 1 and 12 are never going to give me a 7. 2 and 6, never going to give me 7. I don't care how I combine them, but 3 and 4, absolutely. So here's where we have to be clever and thoughtful. We know that when we multiply 3 and 4, we have to get a positive 12, right? So I could put in a +3 and a +4, but we're like, uh-oh, wait a minute. But we also have to get a -7. So let's remind ourselves, when we're multiplying a negative times a negative, we get a positive, right? So -3 times -4 gives us a positive 12, which is good. And -3 plus -4 give us a -7. So that's good too. So it's going to be negative and negative. Now, if you want, and some people do this, you can memorize things like, okay, when this one's a plus and this one's a minus, then these both are minus signs. I don't care which, however you want to do it. All right, let's see. All right, let's do it again. With the same scenario, we have a plus and a minus. So we just did it. We know, guess what? We're going to have our x and our x, and we're going to have 2 negative signs. Because a negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative plus a negative is a negative. So that's going to work. All right, let's see. With 8, we have 1 and 8. We have 2 and 4. Oh, wait a second. This isn't going to work. Whoopsie. All right, let's do this. Right? Because if this were negative, this were negative, let's change the problem. Let's go back to the problem, and let's make that be -9. How about that? Because that is not going to work. So we'll make that be a -9, and then we're going to make it work. Sorry about that. That was strange. All right, so -1 times -8 is +8, so that's good. -1 plus -8 is -9, so that's good. All right. Yeah, if you had scooched ahead by yourself and done that, and you'd be like, yeah, sorry about that. All right, let's see if we have another one to practice. Oh, stop and do practice number 3. Is that it? Stop and do practice number 3. Anything else? Nothing else. Yay, we're done. All right, thanks for joining me. Once again, really, the learning happens when you do the problems and when you struggle and when you get things right because of your hard work and your diligence. All right, I look forward to helping you with these.